The bars are closing down, the restaurants are closing down. Just when we thought we were over this thing, we're seeing that in fact, we're very much in the first wave and the spike is happening. All across the nation, everyone is going back to their stay-at-home orders and people are feeling even worse. But we can learn a valuable lesson from the Marines about how we can get through. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, and this is Off the Couch. Here in the United States, we have conflicting messages coming from our political leaders. We have health spikes going on in our most major populous areas in Arizona, in Florida, in Texas, and even in California. We're having to roll back some of our opening and actually start to close bars as of today, just because the death rates and the infection rates of COVID-19 are spiking. Well, all of this is taking a big toll on our mental health. And the University of British Columbia, in conjunction with the Canadian Mental Health Association, did a study that really found why this is, or what's going on. And actually we can learn a valuable lesson to help ourselves from the Marines. And I'm going to put those two together for you. So first thing to note is that 6% of people, of the general population, are experiencing suicidal feelings and thoughts during this time. That's quite a bit, and that may be higher than you're expecting, but it's much, much higher in other populations, especially marginalized populations. The number one, of course, are people with pre-existing mental health conditions. 18% of people with pre-existing mental health conditions are experiencing suicidal thoughts and feelings. Also, 16% of Indigenous peoples. Now, this was done in Canada, but I don't think that would be unusual with Indigenous peoples in the United States. Also, 15% of those with a disability felt suicidal thoughts and feelings. 14% of LGBTQI population felt suicidal thoughts or feelings. But probably the most interesting number to me was that 9% of parents with children felt suicidal thoughts or feelings. So that's increased over the general population. It seemed that people with pre-existing mental health conditions, which have things actually the very worst of all, 59% say that their mental health has declined over the pandemic. Well, that's compared to 33% of the general population. That's nearly twice of the general population. That's nearly 60%, or 2/3 of people with pre-existing mental health condition have felt a decline over this time. Now, pre-existing mental health conditions cover a variety of mental health issues, and it could be things like depression, anxiety, severe stress. It could be with stress like a post-traumatic stress disorder or some kind of illness it's brought on by certain events. It can also be things like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. And these are a wide variety of disorders, but what we do know is that if you had something before the pandemic began, it seems to get much worse after the pandemic started and ongoing. So what we're seeing is that 2.5 times of people with pre-existing mental health conditions feel depressed. 3 times people with pre-existing mental health conditions are 3 times more likely to have trouble coping, 4 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts, and 4 times more likely to have deliberately harmed themselves. You know, the most interesting thing that happened, I thought, in this study was looking at parents with children. You know, we were originally told that children were going to skate through this epidemic. They really weren't at risk. Actually, what we're seeing now is that children very much are at risk, and they're not only carriers, but they have some special health conditions. But what's also interesting is the mental health of children. Parents of children, 24% of parents with children say their children's mental health has declined over this time. That's especially concerning. But the parents themselves seem to be suffering. Actually, 53% of parents feel more anxious and worried. 45% say their mental health has declined over this time. 29% have increased their use of alcohol. And 12% are worried about being safe from physical or domestic violence, with an additional 9%, of course, saying that they suffer from suicidal thoughts or feelings. You know, what to do about this? I looked around. You know, in this study, it actually just gave a few kind of basic standard things to do. things like exercise, followed by family and friends, and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. It seems like those are the things that really help people. But I found something kind of exciting, and that's with Marines training their elite forces, and they found that what helps people to get through the training. Now, the United States military always has a special need for specialized and elite forces, and they have to go through a very specialized training that is above and beyond the usual military training, which is extremely rigorous. So these group of people are really the top of the top. They're very much the elite. And what they found is that people who go through the Marines military training, they studied them and looked at them and found that there was something that really got them through. Now, what got them through, it seems like only about half the people survived the training, but they found that both groups, the people who survived the training or who got all the way through it and the people who dropped out, they all were pretty equal in physiological standards. They all were about the same physical health ability. They all could run about the same. They all could do pretty much the same things. But the thing that really seemed to be the difference was the mental capability. It seemed that their mental capability, especially their extroversion or their orientation toward other people, and their positive attitude, that's their capability to cultivate a joyful attitude, even though things were pretty grim, were the very things that got them through. Now you may think, what does this have to do with the pandemic? I'm hardly out doing exercise. I'm hardly out going through severe military training. I'm hardly out doing an aquatic exercise where I'm underwater and can't get up for air. Well, yes, that's the kind of suffering that the people have to go through when they go through specialized military training. But this is a very difficult time for us. I mean, people are throwing fits about wearing a mask. I mean, come on. They can stand it. But what's going on right now is that people are having difficulty, really the low frustration tolerance. They tell themselves that they can't stand to go through this time. You know, this time is only going to last for a few months and then we'll be back to normal. Everything will be back to normal. But during this time, things are going to have a very difficult time. So if we can just cultivate a more positive mental attitude and cultivate more orientation toward other people, that's going to help to get us through. And actually, there's another study that's showing that there are five things that can really help get us through this difficult time. Now, the 5 things are called the M.A.R.C.H approach, just like the month. And M.A.R.C.H refers to 5 different things. The number 1 thing is to minimize passive scrolling through social media. Minimize passive scrolling through social media. You can go to specific accounts, but it's actually found that when you just sit there and flip through your Instagram account, just looking through your feed or going through Facebook, that people actually feel more anxious and depressed. But if you go to specific accounts, ones that you know feed you, actually have positive messages, those particular accounts can actually help you. And in fact, if you really have doubt, you can just look at your own account. Sometimes that's a good place to go if you just want to have one account that you go to feel better. The second one is A, to accept negative emotion. We have to just allow a negative emotion to go through us. Emotion will not last. You can just allow it to flow through you. I often tell my clients to allow emotion to flow through them like electricity or flow through you like water. Just allow it to go through. It will not stay. But when you try to push it back, it's like pushing a dam up against water or having the electricity flail around without a ground. Now the next one is R, really connect with people. That means rather than text, actually pick up the phone and talk to someone or do a video call. Actually, when you text, it doesn't give you that personal connection and it leaves people feeling deprived. So if you really want to connect with people, do it by voice or by video. Number C is, or the C is care for yourself. That means exercise, watch movies you really love, make yourself good food that you really love. Those kinds of things can really help you care for yourself. And the last one, H, is to help others. We feel better when we lift other people up. So whatever it is to help others, maybe make masks for other people, that's a good one. Or maybe go to a neighbor and cook a meal for them, or maybe take their dog for a walk. Do something to brighten someone else's day. Maybe make a donation to a charity. All of that would really be helpful to you. So just doing those 5 things can really help you, give you that positive attitude that can help you and can help the Marines to get through their special training, can help you get through this pandemic. Together, we can all get through this together. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, and this is Off the Couch. Yeah, I know, I said together twice.